after 500 hours in Khazan the First Berserker, I can finally do my review on this beautiful video game. If you're new to the game and you haven't played it yet, stay away from this video. It's going to be filled with a lot of spoilers and I don't want to hurt you by posting this video. So stay away from it if you didn't play it. If you did, however, welcome to the channel. Let's start with what is most unique about Khazan the First Berserker in my opinion. The very first thing we're going to talk about is obviously the system in which you can farm those armor sets. And not only that, you can go to the blacksmith and you can farm those armor sets and you don't need to worry about selling them by mistake, because you can go ahead and you can destroy bosses once again, or simply buy materials from dungeon, or simply find materials in the game to craft the armor set again. The beautiful thing is they keep dropping and they drop to your level as you advance through the game. This is something very unique I never met in any video game so far, and trust me, I played a lot of games and I played a lot of Souls-like games especially. The second thing that makes Khazan the First Berserker unique, I think, is the fact that you're getting Lacrima for attempting to fight the boss and win the fight, but you lose it. Because I was very weird about this in the beginning. I was thinking to myself, do we really want that? But think about it logically. Of course we do, because if you cannot defeat the boss, you would simply go and fight a lot of enemies to farm the souls, you know, or the lacrima, whatever you need to grow your character. So you would waste your time by doing that. Remember Dark Souls, when you waste like half an hour to level up your character in order to proceed with the fight? Well, over here, you're getting compensated for your efforts. And by the way, you get way more lacrima the more you advance through the boss fight. So if he has like less than 20% of health, you're gonna get more lacrima. Now, of course, you gotta abstain a bit from the temptation of using that extra lacrima that you're getting for attempting the challenge. Now, but that is something in regards to your self-control. I was tempted about using it, but then I was like, nah, let me actually try and get good with the bosses, not you know, over-leveled my character, because it doesn't make sense. It's gonna make the game boring at that point. The third thing that makes Khazan unique, I would say, it's the RPG health that the bosses have. I don't know what to say about that. I find it actually pretty interesting, but I do feel like it's becoming a bit exhausting, especially towards the end when you're fighting the difficult bosses. This is the game that made me actually go to my girlfriend and ask her to please massage my big finger over here, as weird as it might sound, but I had a lot of pain over here because I was very tense on the controller. So I think it might get exhausting for a lot of players, and especially for the people that never play Souls-like games before. Although this is not very Souls-like in terms of the combat mechanics, but it does get a bit hard and difficult if you don't know how to parry, especially if you don't manage to time that counter attack, of which we're going to talk in a bit. So yeah, it can be a bit difficult. So I don't know what to say about those RPG healths. I feel like they are way too big, and especially when you come to bosses that have like 2 phases, or the last one that has 3 phases. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's a lot of hundreds of thousands of health bars to actually diminish. So it can be terribly tiring for most of players over there. And the last thing I want to mention that makes Khazan very unique is the fact that progression in this game, in your character skill tree and abilities, you really feel that in the field. Just by reaching level 10 with your character, you already feel a huge difference just by putting like 2 or 3 points on the skill tree. And this is actually the first game where I feel like every single decision that you make regarding the skill tree will have a huge impact on the game and will change a lot. For example, when I went to the third boss, Viper, it's actually very difficult if you don't invest points in the javelin. So when you invest points in increasing the damage of the javelin, the fight gets way more easier, assuming that is the strategy you want to use with it. There's another boss named Balerion, which is kinda demented. If you don't use poison on that boss, the boss is almost invincible. It's actually so difficult to defeat Balerion unless you're over leveling your character. So I really like this. I think that this makes Khazan pretty unique. Now, proceeding with the combat mechanics, I really enjoy them. You can bring guard an enemy attack, which is the classy parry that we all know usually. You can also counter attack. So when he's about to hit you, you press L1 and circle on PS5, and then you hear a noise. And it's actually very interesting. This is actually taken from Neo, more or less. And you also can reflect the attacks that an enemy is trying to hit you with. And reflection is actually for the really professionals out there. I didn't manage to reflect a lot in this game, so I don't even want to try that shit. But basically, it's a difference between these mechanics. You need to hold the L1, you need to hold the block button, and as you are about to get hit, then you press triangle and you're going to reflect. It's basically you're rejecting the attack by hitting the blade as soon as the blade touches your blade, if that makes sense. So I find this pretty interesting, pretty amazing, because you do want to have a lot of options that can make your game a bit more playable and that give you a lot of strategies to approach when playing a game. Because what if somebody doesn't like to parry? What if somebody only wants to reflect? What if somebody doesn't want to reflect shit at the enemy? So it's good that we have a lot of options. In terms of that, my hats to the developers. It's an amazing thing to have. Proceeding, you have 3 types of combat system or weapons or whatever you want to call it. And to be very honest, I really love the dual wield, but you can choose between dual wield spear or a great sword. Now, great sword didn't make any sense for me. I know a lot of players actually enjoy that style, but it's way too heavy for a game that is way too fast. Didn't make any sense for me. I didn't like the spear also because I kept you know, poking at the enemies. I felt like there's no strategy, there's no nothing. It's just a way to cheese the game, basically. So I didn't play with that. But this is just my personal opinion. I'm very happy that we do have 3 different styles, because what if somebody doesn't like dual wield? What should you do? Should you abandon the game? So it's good that they give you a lot of options in regards to this. And by the way, I want to say something. I am 100% positive that in the DLC that we're going to see, we're going to have the scythe. I don't have a feeling in my bones that we're going to have a scythe, and I cannot wait to play with that. Next thing I want to mention is the fact that the boss fights actually require strategies, actually require you to think and to calculate and to bring the best build if you can, and to think about your approach, and maybe sometimes to even change the things that you did with the skill tree and assign differently the points that you assigned previously. So that is actually very interesting, because a lot of games just focus on, you know, defend yourself, block the enemy's attack, dodge, and just hit them. But over here, you gotta take into consideration the weaknesses to certain status effects, the throwables that you might gonna use, the strategy. So it's beautiful that you can never apply the same strategy to a different boss fight. In fact, I changed the build so many times. I won so many different armor sets that I never did this in my life with any video game whatsoever. So I really like that. I like the diversity and the fact that it's making us think and make calculations, you know. Now let's talk about the flaws, in my opinion, because the game obviously has some flaws, and I'm not going to talk about the bugs, because obviously the developers and the crashes, by the way, the devs are going to take care about that. It's just a matter of time. But what I want to address is the story. I know it's not a game oriented on the story. I can definitely understand that. It's heavily oriented on the combat system and the movements and all that. But I would have loved to see a much further developing of the story. We know that Khazan wants to take revenge. At a certain point, Ozma wants to take revenge on the whole goddamn world as well. And some people were telling me that this game should actually be named Ozma's Revenge, not Khazan's Revenge. But anyways, the story could have been developed a bit more to a point that we care about the NPCs that we meet along, the people that we bring to the crevice. Like I would have loved to have a story like Bloodborne, more or less, because over there I cared about every single character. I felt like everyone was unique. But over here, I feel like I don't care about Tristan, Julian, I don't care about anyone. And also, the only thing that I loved in the story is the fact that that Reese was supposed to get married, or was married to Ozma. Like over there, I felt like we had some character development. But anyways, like I said, this is a game that is not regarding the story. It's not focusing on that. For a good story, you should definitely play Lies of P. I mean, that hit me very hard, man. Lies of P is beautiful in terms of story. But this is beautiful. Khazan is beautiful in terms of the combat mechanics. Now, another downside of the game, I would say, and by the way, this is my personal opinion, I'm not sure everyone feels the same, but I do feel like replayability in this game doesn't make much sense. I played it. A lot of people were like, oh, you get new skills in the skill tree. I'm like, you don't get a lot of new skills. I mean, you get the logical new skills that you must have in terms of when you do a brutal attack, you're going to get a bit more health because you developed a huge health bar, so you need that. But other than that, you don't get pretty much anything. You don't get like unique skills or God knows what, you know, like something that could actually change the game. You can get Ozma's Chaos build armor set, which is actually amazing. But then again, yeah, you're gonna struggle a bit with the bosses, but it doesn't have that much replayability. And by the way, I say this because you're also exhausted from the boss fights, from those huge health bars, so you're not very tempted to play NG+, NG++, NG++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++ be overburnt because of the exhaustion of the total playthrough that you had in the beginning. And the last thing I want to mention, which I feel like it's not necessarily a downside, but it is something, I don't know, it makes sense in my mind. It's the fact that Khazan is kind of a copycat of a lot of games. I mean, certain areas, it feels like I'm playing Lies of P all over again, but it feels like they literally copied the entire whole idea, you know? When you get to Reese, when you get to Elena, when you play in these palaces, I feel like it's Lies of P all over again. It's a good feeling to have, but I feel like it's way too much of a copycat for some reason. Maybe it's just me, I don't know. So I would very much like to know your opinion. Leave me in the commentary section below. What do you think about this game? How do you feel about the points that I mentioned? And what else would you like to mention, by the way? Maybe you have an observation that can actually help people to decide if this is a game that they want to play or buy. And if you're asking me what grade would I give the game, I would obviously give it a 10 because it is a masterpiece. I think it's going to be game of the year, and I do root for that. But if you're asking me in terms of, you know, story and everything, it's definitely a 9 out of 10 for me. I feel like they could have done more on the story and on certain areas, you know. But other than that, guys, it is a masterpiece. It's a 10 out of 10. You're going to enjoy this at least once to play. A full playthrough, you're definitely gonna love it. I hope I managed to earn your subscription and the like from you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.